A drama-packed game at the MCG to start round 8, with the Pies and the Hawks doing battle. Connor McDonald playing honestly his best game in Hawks colours, 3 goals and 28 disposals, and it just wasn't enough to get the win in the end. Nick Dacos continued his strong season with 34 disposals and a goal, and this game was hectic. It was back and forth, both teams were firing shots, and we honestly couldn't figure out who was going to win. Every team had a bit of momentum, but in the end, it was the Hawks that tried to push late. The Pies were struggling late in the fourth quarter, and the Hawks were pushing hard. Both teams kicking over 13 goals, but the Hawks couldn't put it on the scoreboard. They kicked 15 behinds, and if they just kick one of those 15 behinds straight, it's a win for the Hawks. So it's very disappointing for both clubs not to end up with the 4 points, but the person that will probably be hurting the most is Darcy Moore, who gave away a crucial free kick at the end of the game, dropped mark, and then takes Dylan Moore high. And you can see the disappointment on his face, and Craig McRae obviously wasn't happy. He's had a tough start to the season, Darcy Moore, with injuries and struggling to stay in the side because of his health and fitness, and he just goes and does that. It's detrimental, It's horrible, and it's cost his team 4 points, and he knows it. But Dylan Moore, the composure to go back, have this set shot, and absolutely flush it straight down the middle, You'll take the 2 points if you're the Hawks, but could have easily have been 4. Pies, they're sitting 9th on the ladder at the moment, with a tough fixture coming up. They've got the Cats at the G, which will be a tough game. And for the Hawks, they're going to be flying interstate to face another top team in the Fremantle Dockers, who picked up a massive win against the Western Bulldogs. And it was the Western Bulldogs that started out the gates really well, showing a bit of poise and class when transitioning the ball inside forward 50, and they piled on the goals because of it. They kicked 6-goal-3, and it really showed Fremantle's weakness. They're usually the best first quarter team in the competition, Fremantle, so to concede 6 goals and only put 2 on the scoreboard, Justin Longmuir was rightfully pissed off. He gave his team a massive spray at quarter time, and it really proved to do its benefits, kicking 5 goals in the second quarter to really even out the contest a bit. While the Bulldogs still led at half-time, the Dockers piled on the goals after half-time and really showed their class, kicking 5 goals in each of the quarters in the second half. Shai Bolton was huge, kicking a massive goal late in the fourth quarter. The showdown was arguably the game of the round, with the Crows and the Power playing an absolute belter. But who was surprised? These two teams hate each other, and it's always great viewing for the neutrals. It was a really scrappy first quarter, Port Adelaide jumping out to an early 2-goal lead, and the Crows trying to settle into this game. Up until halftime, it was a low-scoring affair, but the class of some of Adelaide's veterans kept the game close until halftime, while they really surged in the third quarter, kicking 5 goals in what really proved to be amazing second half. Ben Keys kicked 3 goals from his 18 disposals in one of his better games for the club, while it was young gun Braden Cook that showed up when it counted, drilling an absolute beautiful goal from 45 on the run, with only seconds remaining to get the Crows a massive victory. It was a really good game to watch. I really thought the Power had it in the bag, but for the Crows to pull this out, and typically they're not a very good clutch team, and it's a great win for the footy club. So we move forward to Saturday's games, and the first game on Saturday was Essendon versus Brisbane. For the Brisbane Lions, they picked up another huge win to bolster their percentage and positioning on top of the ladder. Essendon have been pretty bad this year, so we kind of expected this result. They've been pretty terrible, but they've got a few young guys that can really show a bit of promise. But for the Lions, it was their premiership veterans that really got the job done for them. They welcomed back Dane Zorko from calf injury, who had 27 disposals. Lockie Neal continued his great form, adding a goal and 27 touches to his resume. And they just were too good in every part of the ground. Like, Zach Bailey kicking 4 goals up forward. Cam Rayner adding 2 goals of his own. So it was just a really good performance overall from the Brisbane Lions. Now we move over to the Tigers, who picked up their first win of the year, undermanned, undersized, over in WA. We kind of all counted out the Tigers. Everyone kind of thought West Coast was going to get the job done at home against a weakened opponent, but the Tigers really showed fight. Tom Lynch up forward, really proving that he's still got a bit left in his career. He's a really good forward. Seth Campbell, kicking 3 goals too from his 17 touches. He's really showing promise for the Tigers. Jonty Fall probably played his best game for the footy club, having 3 goals. And Noah Bolter, surprisingly, going up forward, having 20 touches and 3 goals in a move that could potentially pay off. I don't know if we're going to see him down there in future, or if it's just more of a tactical move for the game, being undermanned, but it was a great win for the Tigers, who move on to play the Crows next week, while the Eagles take on the D's in what should be a great game. We move on now to Geelong versus North Melbourne. And it was the Kangaroos that really showed a bit of fight early in the game. Like, we kind of expected the Cats to kind of steamroll them, which they kind of did in the end, but, you know, it was the Kangaroos that really stuck it to them, and it was a 1-point margin at halftime, led by Colby McKercher, Nick Larkey, but it was their ruckman, Tristan Cherry, that stole the show, broke the record for the most contested possessions by a ruckman. Just an absolute beast. He's a tackling machine, and he just gets clearances at will. He's just a fucking great player. I really think he's the best ruckman in the competition. I know some people might disagree, but watch this guy play. He's phenomenal. And for the Cats, it was Max Holmes that really got them back into the contest, kicking 2 goals in the third quarter from 29 disposals. He's been a light for this Cats team while they've been struggling. Tanner Bruin continuing some good form back from his off-season, and Jeremy Cameron hitting the scoreboard, kicking 3 goals. St Kilda picked up a massive win over Carlton, and that kind of gets them back into finals contention. Wangani Miller was at his best once again, having 31 disposals and a goal. Jack Sinclair added 29, while Max Hall added 23. But it was the move up forward with the big ruckman, Rowan Marshall. Rowan Marshall kicked 3 goals in this game, and it was surprising. I can tell you that he doesn't kick that many goals. So for the big Row Marsh to kick 3 goals, it was huge for the Saints. Tom de Koning kicking 2 goals against his old side, and there was a bit of fire, a bit of crash and bash with these 2 clubs, but the Saints were too good in the end. The Blues are struggling this year, and I don't see where many of their wins are going to come from. So we'll have to see what Michael Voss can do. I don't think he's really made any changes, to be honest. So I don't think we're going to see much difference out of Carlton for the rest of the year. Maybe putting Jagger Smith on ball. It was Malcolm Roses who got a massive win for the Swans. It was Sydney Sweeney in attendance. Big Sydney fan apparently. She was in the crowd cheering on her Sydney Swans as Malcolm Roses had a career night, kicking 7 goals in Brodie Grundy's 250th. It was a great win. They just really showed a bit of class, and the D's have been all out attack this year, really trying to move the footy on at pace and at will. Cozzy Pickett, probably an All-Australian this year, has been phenomenal. He's playing in the midfield, he can kick goals up forward. He's just too good. He really is. He had 2 goals from 22 disposals while copping a tag, so a really great performance from Cozzy Pickett, and they will go on to play a pretty tough game next week while the Sydney Swans play the Kangaroos. It was the Gold Coast Suns. They got the win in the expansion club game. A very scrappy game to close out the round. GWS continuing their woes in front of goal. I think they're probably the most inaccurate team. I don't know if that's true or not, but just from watching their games, they really struggle to put it on the scoreboard. They kicked 15 behinds, but in the first half, they had 3-10 at half time. You know, that's 13 scoring shots, and they just couldn't put it together. Christian Petrarca led the way for the Gold Coast Suns in the absence of Matt Rowell. Kicked a beautiful goal from 45 on the run. He also added 29 disposals, but 2 goals is what you'll get from Track. He's all class, one of the best players in the competition, so a massive win for the Gold Coast Suns as they push for another finals appearance this year. Looking like a top 4 team, I must say, but you never know. And to close out the video, we've got my tips. We had a perfect round, so we'll be absolutely ecstatic with that. We're going to tip Fremantle to beat the Hawks. We think the Lions will get the job done over the Blues. Port Adelaide, I think, surprised the Bulldogs at home. I've got Sydney beating North Melbourne. GWS getting the chocolates over Essendon. Gold Coast up in Darwin, I think, should beat St Kilda. Geelong against Collingwood. I think that's going to be a good game to watch. I think the D's just over the Eagles. And I think the Crows should do a number on the Tigers. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you enjoy. I'll see you next week for the next video.